Good afternoon, everyone. This particular message is kind of appropriate, I think, for a Friday, especially for, you know, heading into the weekend and everything that's in the news and just life in general. Last night, my son and I saw the final, what probably most likely will be the final Mission Impossible movie called Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. So this particular podcast, for lack of a better term, is a review of that movie. And I don't do this a lot. I mean, I talk about a lot of different movies and scenes and, dialogue and so forth. But as far as an actual movie review, I don't do those a whole lot. But this movie blew me away. My son too. I mean, we're just like looking at each other and our mouths are just dropping open. I mean, it was amazing. It was like they took the script from this movie right out of the Bible. I was just blown away. And right out of the Bible, as well as the headlines. Now, I guess this movie's been, they made it over the last few years and just released it in May, like over Memorial Day weekend. But with what we're dealing with now and what we're hearing out now, it was just insane. I mean, literally, my mouth just kind of dropped open, almost like, oh my gosh. I mean, imagine if you're reading the book of Revelation or Daniel or any end time prophetic passages, scriptures from the Bible, and you were given like an open vision of what you were reading, kind of like in a movie format. That's kind of like what this movie was like. I just couldn't believe it, because it deals with everything we're hearing about now. And the reason it was so amazing, I think, is not only how timely and relevant it is, but you had to really look. But they really showed you scenes that you would think came right out of the Bible. Like, they literally showed 4 horses and so forth. I mean, they showed things where it's just like, man, like what John must have seen in Revelation would have just blown his mind, I would imagine, for the end times. I mean, how do you describe it, right? Well, this movie does a very, very good job of describing it. And the basic plot of the film, get this, is an AI takeover called the Entity, okay? And the Entity wants to take over the world. Like I said, it's an AI takeover, but in order to do so, has to destroy the most of humanity, right? Most of humankind can no longer exist. And some people want to serve the AI, thinking that they can save their lives and they can, continue to, whatever it is they want to do in their life. And others want to fight the AI, the Entity, thinking they can beat it and they can save humanity, right? But the Entity does not have full control and power as of yet, because it needs human beings to do its dirty work. Specifically, the world leaders of the nations that all have nuclear capabilities. One of them has to decide to fire off their nukes at another country. Somebody has to start it, and somebody has to be the sacrifice. Let's just put it that way. Kind of like the movie Failsafe, like I've mentioned several times, But once the nuke is fired, of course, there's no turning back. And whatever country with those nuclear capabilities decides to fire the nuke, well, then it is believed that that country, that nation, can be saved by the entity. Okay? But in order to do so, you have to be willing to kill off a lot of humanity. So you can imagine what the world leaders are thinking in this situation. Like, okay, we could sit here and we could wait for the AI, the entity, to eventually destroy us once it finally gains the power, or we can take our fate in our own hands and we can either destroy ourselves or destroy other nations. So it's like, what do, right? Well, of course, Ethan Hunt, people are familiar with the Mission Impossible movies. He's the protagonist, he's the hero and so forth, the major, IMF agent and so forth. Well, the entity has a specific message for him because he is like the only man on the planet, okay, that can not only do the entity's will, okay, but he is the only one that the entity is really willing to communicate with directly. And this is really wild. In order to do so, he kind of like has to enter this capsule type thing where if he resists anything that he's seeing or disagrees with the entity puts him in pain, gives him physical pain. But as long as he accepts what he's seeing in this capsule, like a virtual reality type capsule, that he's enclosed in, then everything is fine and he's not in pain. Well, of course, Ethan Hunt, being the man that he is throughout the films and so forth, you have to know this backstory of all the Mission Impossible films and his character to understand it all. I mean, they do go back in time and they show, some things from the first movie and the third movie, scenes from those two movies and whatnot, and kind of give you a little bit of a background. But to understand everything, you really have to see all the other previous movies, except maybe for the second one, okay? Because they all kind of correlate in one way or another. And so, anyway, I'm just like blown away because they're showing all of the nation's flags that have the nuclear capabilities. They didn't show Iran. It's very interesting, right? Okay, but they showed all of the nation's flags that have the nuclear capabilities, and the entity is basically telling Ethan Hunt that you will do my bidding, or I'm going to destroy the world, but I'm going to give you a say right now in how you want it done. It's like, wow. Okay. So, of course, the whole goal here, the whole mission is, you'd have to see the movie, and like I said, you'd have to see the previous movies for it to all make sense, is to try to save humanity, to try to give humanity a better day, to make so humanity can be its own God, right? So, but humanity will either serve the entity or they will serve themselves. There is absolutely no mention of Jesus Christ in any way, or God the Father himself, other than to call the entity the anti-God, where it thinks it truly is God, that it can create and destroy. Okay? Other than that, there's no mention. And the interesting thing is, though, there's an actual key to stop this thing that has to be inserted, into a Russian submarine that's been submerged under the ice. Like I said, you'd have to see the other movies to understand it all. It's called the cruciform key, because it's shaped like a cross, and it has to be put together with other parts of the key to make the key work, okay? And it's called a cruciform key. But the other thing that really amazed me about this film is it has got to be the cleanest PG-13 movie I've probably ever seen. In the entire movie, there were 2 curse words, no blasphemy, no misuse of God's name, Jesus Christ, nothing. 2 curse words, and it was no worse than anything that you would hear on regular television, in a comedy show or a drama show or anything else. that was it. That was it. I mean, I was amazed. I mean, the reason it's rated PG-13 is because of, thematic elements. There's some violent scenes, trauma, things of that nature, edge of your seat type stuff. A little too intense for PG. But I just couldn't believe what I was watching here. My son and I, we just kept looking at each other. It was like, man, this should be called like Mission Impossible Prophecy. I mean, it's like everything that we're seeing, everything that we're hearing about, everything people study and research and send emails about and do podcasts about and I don't know, do live streams about and just continue to put out there and email format and make a name for themselves or have YouTube channels or whatever it is people do. It's all in this movie. I mean, I just could not believe how accurate and timely and relevant this movie was. Like I said, my mouth was like, it was like open pretty much the entire time I'm watching this thing. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I just read about this. Or I just, somebody was just talking about this on a live stream. Or I just heard a sermon, a message about this. I mean, a servant of God, a man of God was preaching about this, was talking about this. I was just blown away. I just could not believe how timely and relevant that this movie was, especially now as we head into this weekend, which some people think it's all going to blow up this weekend. Other people think it's much ado about nothing. Everybody's entitled to their opinion and speculation or whatever else. Supposedly there's like another 2 weeks, which leads us up to July 3rd or 4th or whatever, to decide on what the United States is going to do, how we're going to get involved in this mess, and so forth. But it's like up to the next 2 weeks, or maybe it kicks off this weekend, or maybe next week. I have no earthly idea. Quite frankly, I'm kind of sick of it, to be honest with you. It's like, to me, it's just like a bunch of double-minded reprobates, in charge. It's just like, they don't know what they want to do, when they want to do it, or they all think that they're geniuses and, and that they all have it all figured out, and everybody makes plans and they're going to do whatever they're going to do whenever they're going to do it. They don't bring God or Jesus Christ into the equation whatsoever at all, other than to curse his name, and so who knows? I mean, who really knows? Enjoy life while you can. I know it's hot as blazes out there, but enjoy life while you can. Enjoy nature while you can. Get exercise while you can. Serve the Lord while you can. Preach the word while you can. Lead people to Jesus while you can. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's just it could all go down this weekend. Then again, it could be like next week, the week after, whatever. I have no idea. But this movie just, I just couldn't believe it. I was in shock. Just how unbelievably prophetically accurate it is. It was almost like, and they probably did do it. Not only did they take it right out of the Bible, the majority of it, but they probably listened to other people's YouTube live streams and podcasts and everything else, all the conspiracy theorists and the crazy nut jobs and the wackos, that haven't known what they've been talking about for the last 10, 20, 30 years or whatever. It's almost like they went onto their streams, hacked their emails or whatever else and took the information right out of there and then put it in this movie script and made the final reckoning. And I just couldn't believe it. I was just blown away. I was like, but my son and I, we just kept joking about it. It's like, it should be called Mission Impossible Prophecy. It's just like, I mean, how else do you explain it? I don't know. I didn't know anything about the film for the most part before watching it, other than it was the second part of Dead Reckoning. The first part for Mission Impossible 7, Dead Reckoning, and then Final Reckoning. I guess Dead Reckoning came out 2-3 years ago, something like that. I don't remember exactly. I think it was 2, 3. I can't remember. But anyway, that's all I knew about it, really. I mean, I just didn't know anything else about it. And so when I saw this, I was just blown away by it. I mean, and it hits you right off the bat, too. I mean, it doesn't like lead up to anything. I mean, it basically shows you right off the bat. Every country in the world that has nuclear capabilities wants to wipe each other off the map, off the face of the planet. You know, they all want to do it, and they all have the capability of doing it. It's just who's going to strike first. And there, like I said, there was a fail-safe moment where, without giving the whole thing away, which I pretty much already did, but but anyway, where our president, okay, in the film has to make a very, very tough decision on whether they're going to sacrifice a U.S. city or not to avoid all-out war with the other nations of the world. And I won't tell you how that turns out, but the movie's fail-safe from the 60s, early 60s or whatever, with Henry Fonda as the president. And I've mentioned it before. You can probably check it out. It's probably free on some streaming service somewhere. And I think that movie, I guess, and or the remake that was made for television with George Clooney and Richard Dreyfuss, and I don't remember, Sam Elliott, a bunch of other actors in it. But anyway, they kind of take from other films to make this movie too. To, you know, everybody else copies off each other anyway, and to put the script together. So I'm like, wow. Pretty much anything I've watched, seen, heard about over the last 10 plus years is in this movie. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, that's it for my almost 17-minute movie review of Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. Check it out if you want, whatever. Take my word for it, don't. I mean, it's your call. Do whatever you want to do, but it's pretty wild. But as far as like it being clean, I was shocked. I was like, there's like no language in this. I couldn't believe it. It's like, that's unbelievably refreshing. No language, no sex, some violent scenes, yes. I mean, it is an action film, some blood, violent scenes, thematic elements. But that's it. I was like, wow, how refreshing is that? How amazing is that? Anyway, I enjoyed it overall. A little over the top, certain scenes, but overall, I enjoyed it. Yeah, the end definitely way, way over the top. Should have fallen off that plane like I don't know how many times. But anyway, I've given away too much now. Anyway, all right, you guys have a good one. Take care. Have a good weekend. Be safe. Enjoy life. What can I tell you? While you still can. Who knows when things are going to kick off and how bad it's going to be when it does. Just be ready. All right, take care. Bye-bye.